Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to a live new episode of He Said, He Said, He Said, a look at the world from a seasoned Black man's perspective. I'm your host, Alvin King, and welcome to our Friday, July the 12th show, ladies and gentlemen. I do appreciate all of you joining us tonight. And, even when we take a week off, it feels like we have been away from you guys forever. So it feels good to be back right now. Again, happy Friday to all of you. If there is one word that's on the lips of everybody, particularly on the East Coast, the word is heat. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I mean heat. It has been a scorcher out here. I mean, consistently. I'm a native Washingtonian. And when I tell you, I don't recall, I know it's been some hot days, but it's been days where it's like you walk outside and it pinches your skin kind of hot. And that's some evil hot. Then you couple that with the humidity, and it is just brutal, just nasty. But I hope everybody is taking care of themselves and staying hydrated. And when you go outside and putting on your skin protection and all that stuff to avoid getting any type of heat stroke or heat related illness, ladies and gentlemen, just make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And there's some things happening around DC to help keep you cool. Supermodel Tyra Banks brings DC a halt. Scoop summer, ladies and gentlemen. Fashion and entertainment icon Tyra Banks chose DC as a site for her first official Smize and Dream scoop shop. It's situated in the Woodley Park of DC, that's upper northwest off Connecticut Avenue. And Smiles and Dream will operate as a pop-up starting Friday, July the 19th to Friday, September the 20th. The ice cream store sets itself apart with what it calls a Smize Surprise. That's a Smize is that look that Tyra created on her shows, America's Top Model, the thing you do with your eyes, that kind of thing. And hidden at the bottom of every cup and cone, these sprinkle covered truffle treats come stuffed with the likes of a cookie dough, jelly filling, cake filling. So if you like something in the bottom of your ice cream, Tyra has what you need, ladies and gentlemen. So again, it opens on Friday, July the 19th. It's going to be in a place called Petite Mode in the Upper Northwest on Connecticut Avenue. So please check it out. And we couldn't go have the show without talking about what's happening today. There's always a holiday or an observance in somewhere in the month somewhere. And today is National Simplicity Day. And now that's my kind of day. Despite what you all may think when you see me or think, follow me on social media, I love to keep it simple. This is one of those days that really mean a lot to me. So it is National Simplicity Day. And also it is National Eat Your Jello Day. So for all of you who like Jello shots and, like to get into that kind of thing, ladies and gentlemen, today is National Simplicity Day. So keep it simple and have you a nice Jello shot because it is National Eat Your Jello Day. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have an amazing show for you tonight. We are having a conversation about the impact of spiritual and religious trauma on Black, gay, and Christian men. Our special guest, author Dr. Raphael C. Heaggans, has written the new book, Losing What I Never Had, Uncovering My Authentic Self. And he's here to share the trauma he experienced in the church, ladies and gentlemen. And, this is a topic that, Bobby and I have wanted to talk about, but as the universe has it, when the time is right, the universe will make it right. And Dr. Heaggans is here with us, and we're going to have an amazing show for you all tonight. So I'm going to get on with it because I don't do what I do alone. So if you all are ready, let's get on with the chat. Bobby!
Hey, Alvin, how are you?
How you? And then there were two. How you doing? And then there were two. How you doing, my brother?
I'm well. I'm so happy to join you. As you well know, I am still on my vacation. I'm away. I'm on the island of Martha's Vineyard, and I'm so happy to be able to join you guys. I'm here with friends and family, and even a special guest who I got to meet while here on vacation. So yeah.
Yes, you did. And Bobby, while I was on vacation in Chicago, Bobby sent me a picture of him and my special guest, and I almost walked into a beam. I think I don't know. I think when you sent it to me, I just started just walking and I saw it. Hey Kendall, how you doing?
Hey,
Thanks for
Kendall.
joining us tonight. So first of all, your skin looks amazing. So
Thank you.
apparently,
I've got some sun.
Martha's Vineyards
Thank you
is
very
working
much.
for you. Okay.
I think I've got the little. Thank you. Yeah, the sun is getting me. I've been sun kissed. Yes.
So what is going on, my brother? There's a lot going on, but what's been going on for
There's a
you
lot
in your
going
chat
on.
life?
There's a lot going on. Well, the first thing I thought we would talk about this evening, of course, is something that's on the lips of a lot of people, and in particular in our area where we're from in Washington, D.C., and that is the growing concern as to whether or not President Joe Biden has the capacity to win. After his very questionable debate performance and so forth, there are a lot of people who are calling into question his capacity to actually beat the former president, whose name, I don't.
I got you. I got you. This is live, ladies and gentlemen, and as I said, Bobby, well, as he said, Bobby is on Martha's Vineyard. So we were talking about
And in
the
fact, George
conversation.
Clooney just hosted a star-studded fundraiser for President Biden's campaign, reversing course right now. Am I there? I think I had a little bit of technical difficulty.
You're back with us, yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. But George Clooney, who just last month hosted a very star-studded fundraiser for President Biden's campaign, is now reversing course, basically saying, we are not going to win in November with this president. He said, I love Joe Biden as a senator, as a vice president, and as a president. I consider him a friend. I believe in him. I believe in his character, believe in his morals. But he really questions whether or not we're able to win the presidency this November if we continue to move forward with Joe Biden as the Democratic ticket. So there's been a lot of discussion as to whether or not we should change. We are 100 and some odd days out from the actual election. And, I'm sure you have an opinion on this. Mine personally is this is a question in my mind of not just whether or not someone is stumbling or has a speech impediment or anything like that. This, in my mind, is a question of democracy as we know it versus a very different country. When you look at Project 2025 that's out, the Republican Party has laid out a very clear outline of things that they would like to accomplish if the former president regains that position. And so for me, it is a question of the country as we know it versus a very, very different place.
Well, okay. Yes, it has, like everybody else, watching Joe Biden during that debate with Donald Trump was hard to watch. Let me be perfectly clear. I am Biden Harris all the way if Biden decides to stay in the race. I'm just going to make sure that I publicly say that. We elected him when he was of a certain age, and we were concerned then.
Oh yeah, we do. This is no surprise.
It's a boo, no surprise. So what he has done while he has been in office, we cannot forget about that. We cannot forget about all the work that he's done in the office. The fact that he stumbled, he has a speech impediment, like I said, he had a bad debate. I'm not ready to throw the towel in and say that this man is not qualified to run for the presidency. Yes, he's old, but I am going to say this though. My only issue with Joe Biden and running is that he's not good at pivoting. He proved to me that he's not good at pivoting. And that was a key word that's been in my system when I watched him during that debate. Stuff that Donald Trump said to him, he should have been able to snap back quick. And that's the piece that kind of makes me go,
I hear that. I hear that.
Get somebody who can pivot. And that's my only thing with that. So yeah.
I'm also concerned with the fact that, we're talking about those issues, which I think are valid issues. And yet no one is calling for the person who is a convicted felon who has asked the Supreme Court for total immunity, who was responsible for January 6th, who literally stacked the court in order to roll back women's rights around their bodies.
I'm
who
running out of
children
fingers, Bobby.
with children on concrete floors and cages. Like, nobody's saying to him he should step down. So yeah, the list is
right. It's crazy, and I'm sick of watching people who are trying to jump ship, and you're jumping ship without saying who could run in his place.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
It's
You're
interesting.
talking about the problem, but you don't have a solution.
I was talking with some folks here on the porch, on our porch, about some politics and so forth, and it was a really interesting ticket that we kind of thought of, and we were like, why did the Democratic Party not consider the ticket? Imagine this: Gavin Newsom of California and Stacey Abrams of Georgia, the two of them together. What an incredible ticket
Gavin Newsom said he's not going to do it. Gavin Newsom said he's not going to do it.
Well, he can't do it if Kamala Harris, right? If Kamala rises up, he can't do it because they're both from the state of California. So you can't have the president and the vice president from the same area. But
he doesn't want. So hold on, Blue. Robert Blue Beatty, thank you for joining us tonight. And I wanted to read Robert's. He said, and TSAR place is much less than we have ever seen. Maurice said, I'd rather vote for Biden if he were in a coffin instead of Trump. I know that's right, Maurice. And Blue said that place. Maurice also, he said, I also have a feeling that this has to do with the possibility of a woman becoming president if something should happen to Biden. Well, and that's Maurice, we want to bring you on because I want to have a really in-depth conversation about that. And we just want some of our viewers to come on the show. So Maurice, I think I must hit you up, have you come on the show, because that's a whole nother conversation.
Talking to you, Maurice.
That's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, it's okay. Well, more to be revealed on that, because they are truly, it's going to be in the headlines for a while. Also on Capitol Hill, something is happening that is really unprecedented. New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez followed through on her threat to file articles of impeachment against conservative U.S. Supreme Court Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas this past Wednesday, accusing them of promoting a corrupt crisis on the court for failing to disclose their gifts and recuse from certain cases. Now, let me tell you, a judge should not accept any gifts from a single source in a calendar year with a total value of more than $250. Okay, that's $250. And one little piece that I just want to, share with you. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and read it. I want to share with you all. Now, I said $250. Sources say that Clarence Thomas. Here we go. Clarence Thomas lavish gifts and access of exclusive clubs were provided by Supreme Court judge. Clarence Thomas's for more than 2 decades were provided gifts by Republican mega donor. All right. And sources say that he has been taking and accepting luxury lavish trips from a Dallas billionaire Republican donor virtually every year for 20 years. Private jet flights around the world. Sources found that international cruises on a super yacht, regular vacations at an invitation-only private resort, all in secret. And all of this was provided to him by businessman. Most of it was provided to him by businessman Harlan Crow. Okay. And Alito, it says that he, according to an undisclosed source, went on a fishing trip to Alaska with billionaire donors, including hedge fund manager Paul Springer, who later businesses before the court. This source was kind of crazy, but he also dealt with Harlan Crow.
We're dealing with more than $250. That's
my point. We're dealing with right. And I just want to also let the viewers know that this is a very difficult bar for AOC to reach. Even if the impeachment measure were to reach the Senate, a 2/3 vote would require 67 out of the 100 senators to vote in favor of the impeachment. I'm all for the impeachment, though. Get them out, because the courts is just a hot mess. It's just a hot mess.
Yeah, it's a problem, and we're certainly not feeling as Maurice was pointing out, that they wanted to make a big deal about Ketanji Brown's Beyonce tickets and a book deal, and they have gone after that.
Right.
And he and I think Blue also mentioned a little earlier that in response to Maurice's concern about the female becoming president, Maurice also pointed out, and a Black woman being president, because the fact that I'm sorry, that was Blue. I'm sorry, that was Blue that pointed that out, that, you know, there is also great concern, not just a woman, but the woman who would become president. Yes. So that's theirs.
That's
But
if Kamala Harris did become the running mate, I'm just going to go back to that real quick. I think that she would set a tone that would be just for Trump, but America would look at her as the angry Black woman, because she could set it off. She could set it off on stage. And you know, we get such a bad rap for being the angry Black, whatever.
Yeah, I agree with you.
When we have a point, you know what I'm saying? So
I agree with you.
All right.
And speaking of $250, I just want to say to you, that shirt is popping tonight, and I don't know how much it costs, but it looks very nice on air tonight. I just want to let you.
And I won't tell you, but I will say that I will say that my cousin, he loves me and loves me in fashion. He gave me this shirt as a gift, and thank you. I'm so happy with it. Thank you. I call this my marijuana looking shirt. But go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, we've dealt with some heavy topics tonight, but I also want to share some really good news. I am a huge, huge fan of Cynthia Erivo, and she just recently received from the Los Angeles LGBT Center an award for just being a pioneer and representing authenticity. And I have some notes here that I wanted to read. That she was given the award by Jada Pinkett Smith, who in her introduction shared that the award, the Schrader Award, is named for the late.
Oh, my poor Bobby. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, that's what happens. He's on vacation.
Star,
there he
rightly
is.
enough,
Mm-hmm.
so that others may dare to shine. Erivo was honored alongside the award-winning visual artist McKinley Thomas and other celebrities as well. But one of the things that I loved was that, you know, in her acceptance speech, Cynthia Erivo talked about the fact of embracing her queerness in the public eye. And she said, "I stand here in front of you, Black, bald-headed, pierced, and queer, so I can say to you that I know a thing or two about being the other." I just think she is an extraordinary talent. If you have seen her perform at a number of award shows and performances on Broadway, she is the real deal. And I'm just really, really pleased to see that she is being celebrated, not just for her talent, but being so in her authentic self. I love, love, love Cynthia Erivo, and I'm so excited for her in this acknowledgement.
That is a good kudo to Cynthia Erivo. And can I get a little shameless plug in here? Ladies and gentlemen, if you all have not seen Cynthia Erivo pay tribute to Dionne Warwick at the Kennedy Center Honors in 2023, please Google 23. Please Google her singing Alfie. Do yourself a favor and Google that. It is one of the best performances of the year. Thank you for that, Bobby. I truly appreciate that. And last, Bobby, I do have one last thing that I want to share with everybody. It's kind of a feel good when you think about it. Ladies and gentlemen, you all know, being Black, sometimes it is really hard to get a job, ladies and gentlemen. And we have to go through great lengths to be better, to do more. And this next story is about a Black man who got an interview after he changed his name on his resume. Now, Dwight Jackson has filed a lawsuit against the Shinola Hotel in Detroit, Michigan. He did it on July the 3rd, alleging that he was denied a job when he applied as Dwight Jackson, but later was offered the job or an interview when he changed his name to John Jabrowski. Okay, and when he changed his name to John Jabrowski, he kept all of his his credentials and everything on the resume as being qualified to do this job. And he got multiple interviews from Shinola. Now, Dwight has decided that he's going to sue them, and he is suing them. And his lawyer said that they are in violation of the Michigan Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act, ladies and gentlemen. And I asked one of my producers to, she's going to put that up because I thought this was a feel-good story. Well, a number of reasons. First of all, the fact that he did not give up. He said, wait a minute, I am going to skin this cat. And I'm going to go another route to let you all know that I see what you're doing and it's not right. And in the end, he is going to sue them, you know, as he should, for treating him unfairly. I found this just to be a good story in that he didn't give up. You know what I'm saying?
And I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. Overall, I think it's a horribly tragic story that still in 2024. The fact that, you know, resumes are being sifting them out based upon the name. It's really unfortunate. And that when using John Jabrowski, he all of a sudden is able to be offered an interview. Detroit, come on now. My Detroit fans and friends out there, Shinola, what's happening there?
That's right. You all go to Shinola and tell them I'm not staying here. Don't stay at that property, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to say hi to a couple of people. Rodney has joined us. I think I saw Michi. Sharon has joined us. Albert Massey has joined us tonight. Thank you all for being here. I'm sure some of you all from new faces.
I should say Michi is joining us from. I should say Michi is joining us from the porch on the house that I'm like. She's literally sitting downstairs on the front porch of this house.
Well, thank you for joining us, Michi, on your vacation. You know, you're one of our favorite viewers. So thank you for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, like I told you, and for some of you new faces, you must be here because we have an incredible guest here tonight. My producer just said something about that last story. Only about 10% of the submitted resumes actually make it through the process to the HR decision makers. And
so if only 10% are getting through, and they're sifting out those that sound like people of color,
right?
It's not good. It's not good.
Thank you, Mr. Jabrowski, for doing what you had to do. All right, Bobby, are you ready to bring on our special guest? Because you've already met him.
I had the pleasure of meeting him here on vacation. Exactly.
So if you're ready, I'm going to go ahead and introduce him. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Raphael C. Heaggans is a special education administrator at Prince George's County Public Schools and an author of several works, including his popular books, Diversity and Triumphs of Navigating the Terrain of Academe, International Perspectives, and the 21st Century Hip Hop Minstrel Show. Are we continuing the Blackface tradition, offering a critique of hip hop and show how hip hop often serves as a tool of oppression that perpetuates historically negative images and messages about people of African descent. But in his new book, Losing What I've Never Had, Uncovering My Authentic Self, he calls this a story of courage. Loosely based on his life as a survivor of sexual abuse from his biological religious father, it captures the process of forgiving and encourages the reader to walk in the identity in which they have been divinely called. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to our stage Dr. Raphael C. Heaggans, please.
Good evening, everyone. Hello. How are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
Oh, my goodness. Doing fantastic. I was like, who was that man from 10 years ago, that black and white? My gosh, who is he?
What are you talking about?
You all dug deep for that picture.
we have what we call the archives. We have what we call the archive, so we can find out all kinds of images of our guests.
Oh my goodness! Well, okay, we'll try to stick to the last 5 years, will you? All right.
If I was going to sing a Linda Clifford if they could see me now, but I can't do that because they'll clip me and won't air the show. But thank you for being here, and you know, for such a moment where you are. I just look at you as courageous. To tell this story And I know you're going to talk to us about it, but the only word that keeps coming to me is courageous. And so thank you for being here, man. I can't say that enough. And I'll say it 100 times before I leave here tonight. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So, and congratulations. So I'm going to kick off the first question, Raphael. Please share with our viewers what inspired you to write this book.
Well, thank you so much, Alvin. And thank you to Bobby and Courtney and Norman and all of those who had taken out the time to certainly join tonight. I am certainly humbled by certainly being invited to certainly share my story here. And I thank you all so much for providing me with this platform by which to do so. Now, my inspiration for writing this book largely comes from the media. And let me tell you why. Prior to me coming on this show, I overheard conversations about how this news to oppression and discrimination, etc. And in the LGBT community being murdered for simply being. And so in the name of those persons, I decided that I needed to certainly tell my story, because I would be willing to bet that we have some commonalities. Whereas people of color, many of us had started out in the church, where the church were the first people to certainly tell us that homosexuality, being a lesbian, being bisexual, it's all sinful, etc., etc., etc. And in my particular experience, I've never been in churches who were so enamored about who you were in the bed with that I had to certainly write this particular story. And it comes from a place where my own biological father, who was a rather religious man, was the first person who I had sexual relations with as a child. And the thing was that it was something that I did not know was wrong, but it was the only time in which it seemed as if he demonstrated love towards me. So I had to certainly talk about this story, because I really believe that as people read my book, they will see elements of not only themselves, but of situations and circumstances that occurred around them while participating within some of the Black churches.
That's
Again,
a lot. That is a lot.
Courage.
Yes,
Courage.
absolutely. Raphael, you mentioned that the sexual abuse began as a child. How old were you when it began?
I was 5 years old when it had begun, Bobby. 5 years old. And there were times in which, as time went on, it was also done in front of my biological mother. My biological father was one who ruled with an iron fist, ruled with fear. And he always taught my mother, my brother, and myself, don't ever tell what goes on in this trailer. And as I got older, I had begun to understand why, because I wanted to be favored by my father, because he certainly favored my brother, who did not undergo any of the abuses that my mother went through, nor I, even though he was present. And yes, though he was present, he was abused too. I get that argument. But in terms of experiencing it firsthand, like my mother and myself, he did not. As I got a little older, the church folks were saying, well, that boy is acting rather effeminate. Something's going on with him. And of course, my father would openly discipline me and embarrass me and call me names, only to resume what he had done perhaps nights before.
Again, tragic. So let me, just as a point of clarification, so you're saying that while your mother and you experienced actual physical abuse, your brother did not, but he obviously was impacted and affected by being in the presence of it. Am I correct there?
Yes. What I am suggesting is that though my brother was aware of these instances going on, my father pampered him, favored him, spent time with him, sewed into him, taught him about sports, put him around my brothers. Put him around his brothers who taught him a variety of things in which I too wanted to learn, but would often be excluded because I acted too much like a girl by their standards.
Oh, again, as Alvin speaks of the word courage, I guess for what keeps coming to my heart is I'm just sorry. I am sorry that you had to experience that. You speak in your book to religious trauma, and can you define that for us, as well as distinguishing it from spiritual trauma?
Okay, and thank you so much. And for starters, thank you so much for certainly offering your condolences. But as a person who is self-actualized,
Yes.
I'm well beyond my story. The thing is that I had to go through this story as part of my life's purpose for writing this book, and certainly telling those who had experienced religious trauma that they can overcome too. Now, you had asked about religious trauma. In my
Yes.
particular case and in my particular experience, religious trauma certainly included something like participating in a deliverance service, so to speak, for being who you are and for being what God had divinely made you as being. There have been times in which I had been a part of those so-called deliverance services in which the prophet apostle of the week would come to town and work in cahoots with the pastor in order to certainly emotionalize service for an economic benefit while acting as if they have the power of God, and doing so at the expense of embarrassing those people who are part of the disenfranchised. For example, hey, you are a homosexual. We come to deliver homosexual spirits right now in the majestic name of Jesus, etc., etc. Come up here and let's lay hands on you, point your finger over here, cue the music, etc. And see, the thing is that what do people do when it's your own father who's behind this service, who's behind inviting this apostle, this prophet, who's working in cahoots with this particular preacher who happens to be a very close friend? What do? And as part of this fiasco, you're willing to sacrifice your own son to be in the center of this, to call out what he is and what you contributed to making him as. That's what I mean in terms of religious trauma, and the outcome of such wasn't just to me. He was jealous of my mother. My mother, beautiful woman. He was one that wielded control over her. Would not allow her to get a driver's license. Would not allow her to go to college. Even had her to disconnect with her 8 biological siblings that I didn't know she had until I was 35 years old. So with that, he would take her lipstick, and write messages on the bathroom mirror, cryptic messages. I'm going to take you to work today. I saw the way that you were looking at this particular man on the job. Let me catch you looking at him like that again. And don't wear that particular skirt or those particular kind of pants. I'm watching you. Or he would take black shoe polish and write on brown paper bags and put cryptic messages in her closet or in her underwear drawer, just to remind her of that fear that he wants her to live under. So it was traumatic for myself. It was traumatic with my mother too.
Well, Dr. Heaggans, first of all, Rodney, thank you for that question, and we're going to get to that. So we're going to answer that question for you soon, Rodney. Or we're going to ask the question, and Dr. Heaggans will address it. I'm going to go off script. Excuse me, Bobby. How did your family feel about you telling your story?
All right. Well, in my particular case, and of course you and the audience would not know. Let me specify the family to you. What I'm so grateful for as part of my story is that I eventually became adopted legally into another family. And when I had come to that family was the one that taught me about the power of forgiveness, because I was very bitter and angry over what I had experienced with my biological father, and to some degree angry with my biological mother, because she watched it happen and still did not step in to do anything about it. So that family had taught me about the power of forgiveness, and they told me, why don't you sit down and just write a letter, and whatever comes to mind, you write that down. And by the time you get to the end of the letter, express how you feel and mail the letter. And that's exactly what I did. And what I did was that I articulated some of my pain and hurt, etc. And by the time I got to the end of the letter, I said, you know what? I forgive you. I have been legally adopted into another family that taught me about the power of forgiveness. They love me. They embrace me. They accept me. They love me. And they are going to help me pursue the very dreams that you did not want me to pursue. And I'm wishing you nothing but the very best. And I mailed that letter. And so about 3 months later, I had this unction to just drive to his house. And I went to his house, and by that time he had remarried, and the new wife's 3 children and my biological brother were there. And my biological brother was the one that greeted me to the door, and he gave me a hug. He was glad to see me. And my biological father said, oh, well, there's my prodigal son. And of course, I let it go. I didn't say anything. But I was glad that I was able to certainly be around him and strive to demonstrate love. And let me conclude my response with this. I saw him 2 more times after that. And that last time I saw him, he asked me, could we take a ride? And thinking about the fact that my brother did tell me my father got the letter and that he did read the letter, but his wife did not know about the letter, I was torn, because I wondered if he wanted to talk about the letter and maybe offer some semblance of forgiveness, or ask for forgiveness, or whether he wanted to take me back to the man that he was and holler, fuss, and cuss, and put me in a position whereby, whether do I continue with my forgiveness of him, or do I physically assault him? And then, of course, he wound up dying about 3 months after my last visit of a heart attack at the age of 45 on his job.
Wow.
Where did you grow up? Where was this happening?
This was happening. It's in North Carolina, is what I'll say. Now, in the book, I have it in a fictitious town in South Carolina, but it's actually in a town in North Carolina.
Okay. Thank you.
So, so in terms of the family feeling about me writing this book, my adoptive family are in complete support. My biological family, my brother read the book in 2 days, and he asked me, are you talking about this person? Are you talking about that person, etc.? Because everyone is made up, so to speak. But 70% of what's in this book is true. But it's a fiction book because the 30% that's just simply made up.
Right. Thank you. Well, so Raphael, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Do you believe the church still struggles with accepting homosexuality? And if so, why do you feel that way?
Yes, I do believe that the church still struggles with that. And I believe that they struggle with it because of a script they have been historically mandated to follow. What do I mean? For instance, first, long ago, if we take a look at our history, that because Cain was given this so-called Black X, it gave the white settlers grounds to certainly execute slavery among people of color, and thus create laws that's in favor of them and against people of color. Also, too, this notion of women keeping silent in the church. Well, okay, well, women can only have these particular roles in the church, whereas men have these particular roles in the church. The discrimination continues. Well, if you are a person with disabilities, if you're blind, if you're maimed, et cetera, during biblical times, so to speak, they weren't necessarily allowed into the temple. They were not. And then we go into homosexuals, this notion of Sodom and Gomorrah and the other 5 clobbering scriptures. So because they've forgotten about how historically people from underrepresented backgrounds have been discriminated against, these churches who do not accept homosexuality are simply perpetuating what they've been taught and what they've learned without really searching the scriptures to be certain and to understand that Jesus was certainly a man who fought for and advocated for the disenfranchised. That's the work that he did. He did not necessarily favor men over women or people who were without disabilities versus those with disabilities. He did not. In fact, with the women, going back to that particular piece, it was the women who were with him that when he died on the cross, it was the women who were with him, who in turn met him after he had resurrected. The men had run off. So to all of a sudden come up with these so-called rules that conveniently support a particular agenda, yeah, the churches still have it all wrong.
Thank you. Thank you.
You mentioned the opportunities there at church where you were singled out and used as an example of, someone who I guess would be could be cured, saved from your orientation. Were there particular scriptures or things that were said in those instances?
There were particular scriptures, and in fact, I do have a chapter within this book here in which
this book right here.
Oh yes, that one right there. That's right.
That's
right. That's right.
This book right there.
You got it, and you got it the first time. That's right. That's right. But there were certainly scriptures that they used to so-called substantiate why deliverance was so-called needed. And they had raised a lot of money that night, by the way. But that's encapsulated within this book too. So, it's a dangerous thing to get caught up in emotionalism without exploring what the facts are, without exploring what Jesus's purpose was. It's kind of like what you two had been discussing earlier in relation to President Biden. I don't understand how a particular moment in which he had a bad night in debating can undermine the almost 4 years of work that he had done to help those who were disenfranchised. So the thing is that yes, scriptures were used. Sodom and Gomorrah was used. The scripture in relation to it's an abomination was used, etc. And we've been free from the law, but nonetheless, somebody didn't get that freedom.
They didn't get that. So I'm going to move on. And Rodney E., this is your question, but I just framed it a little differently. Dr. Heaggans, can you describe the relationship that you have with the church now?
Yes, I am part of a wonderful church in which, I'm part of Alpha Street Baptist Church, in which my
I'm
pastor,
familiar. Okay.
yes, indeed, my pastor is one who I really appreciate because he says his job is to make you think, not to necessarily believe as he believes, but to certainly take the scriptures and apply them to what they mean to you. And he preached an outstanding 6-series sermon related to homosexuality and how we've been taught all wrong about that. And when I had processed that, I account for within my book that there is a he of God and there's a she of God, and since we are created in God's image, to me, God is androgynous because he has those two genders wrapped up within him. And so do we, because it takes both a male and a female to make us both. So why do we get caught up on this notion of homosexuality, lesbian, bisexual, etc.? When the bigger issue is that what about our poor? What about our people in prison and so on?
Well, I am a very big fan of your pastor. He is a fraternity brother of mine as well. And, I listen every morning.
Got a flaw, but okay.
I listen every morning to your church's prayer line, and I watch services on Sundays and so forth, even though I attend another church. And so I certainly understand your spiritual connection to that particular church. So one of the things I wanted to ask you very quickly is, and in some ways you've kind of answered it, given your representation of your pastor, but are there things that you believe the church can and should be doing now to repair the relationship around this issue?
The church should start by certainly taking a look at itself, searching the scriptures, and also begin to embrace openly anyone who wants to be a part of their church. All of us bring our stuff, all of us bring our baggage, our drama, etc. But nonetheless, to be simply accepting, because that is what Jesus would do and be. He would be that accepting kind of individual. All of us have a story.
Dr. Heaggans, given the book is loosely based upon your own personal journey, can you share with us the work that you've done that can be of help to other people who may be going through a similar situation as you?
What I had done.
I'm sorry, as you did. I'm sorry. As you did. Okay.
It's all right. It's all right. What I've done was I surrounded myself by critical friends that love me enough to tell me when I'm right and when I'm wrong. I have a therapist that I am still meeting with every 2 weeks, in which I process things and talk to him about a variety of things, etc. Because this is a work in process for me to be the best version of myself. So those were some of the things and also too, having my own personal relationship with God. That's paramount and meaningful to me. And the thing is that those things in conjunction with one another help me to realize that the way that I am is how God had divinely made me as being. And I should be proud of that. And I hope that with my book will empower people to be proud of the way God created them, because they're beautiful just as they are.
See, now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the perfect segue, because we've asked Dr. Heaggans to read an excerpt from his book tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to go ahead and just briefly set it up. So Dr. Heaggans, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to set it up, and I'm going to go into my introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome an excerpt from our special guest, Dr. Raphael C. Heaggans, please.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and I will certainly keep this brief. This excerpt comes from a chapter entitled "Because I Said So," and the context will tell you what happened. One time while you were at work, Daddy took me to your bed and we played a game. Tell me more about this game, Bart. Dreamer said, flummoxed by Bart's words as she opened the box of the off-brand macaroni and cheese. And this is me as the child speaking. When I get in the tub to bathe, he washes me and tells me he loves me. Well, it's nice for him to tell you that he loves you since he hardly says it. And do you have some challenges washing your back? Is there more to this game? Dreamer questioned inquisitively. He said, children ought to obey their parents in the Lord, right? And I said, right. He said, let's play a game called putting the worm into the apple. He says, my mouth is the apple and his pee-pee is the worm. He told me that I could never tell anybody about our secret game or else he would have to hurt me for disobeying him. So I'm going to certainly stop right there. And that was an indication of the main character, which is the child, having a conversation with his mother about this game that he really hates playing, but it's the only time in which he feels like he receives love from the father, and the father used scripture to justify employing this act upon the child. So that's certainly one piece. All right, let me read another piece. Earlier, we had talked about the apostle and the prophet of the week coming to town. In this particular chapter, Sins in the Church, let's hear a little bit. The apostle prophesied jobs, cars, homes, strong marriages, checks in the mails, promotions, and surprise money to each selected person. And mind you, people were standing in line waiting for their prophecy that was really for sale. Ralph Cushion and his wife, Angelique, received the prophecy that their twins will receive college scholarships when they graduated high school next year. How many of you know that God chastises those he loves? Yes, amen, glory to God. Ephesians 5:5 says, for this ye know that no whoremonger, no unclean person, no covetous man who is an idolater hath any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. We want every saved person to inherit the kingdom of God. So we have to cast out some whoremongering spirits today. The congregation's reaction ranged from, amen, apostle, get that unclean spirit out and tell us who it is, apostle, to the two of you. That's my mother and me. God loves you, but does not love your sin. Sister Johnson, I see that you are an adulterer, Apostle Matthew said charismatically. Call it out, apostle, a female congregant shouted. I see three men. Somebody say three. Three. You've been sleeping with three men while your husband is at home reading Bible stories to the children. The congregants gasped and murmured. And of course, they go through the process of so-called casting the spirit out, when in actuality, my mother wasn't cheating on my father at all. And of course, they go through that process with the child.
Dr. Heaggans. Like, first of all, I cannot wait to get the book. And before we came on, ladies and gentlemen, I found out he was local. I'm getting my book signed, and we're going to put up how you can get the book also. Thank you for that. Thank you. Bobby? Did Bobby?
Okay, I'm just so taken back. So the reading again was just very moving. So is it safe to assume, Dr. Heaggans, that the writing this book was an integral part of your own personal healing?
Oh, absolutely. It was rather cathartic because I had to reach back and relive some of the things that I had experienced. There were a few things that I thought I had forgotten about that were brought back to my remembrance that I simply had to write about. Now, I don't want you nor the listeners to walk away thinking that this is a doom and gloom story, because it's really about a process of forgiveness. And I'm glad that I was able to let him know that I forgave him prior to him departing this earth. Though I wish he and I could have had a conversation about it. I wish we could.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I think given the magnitude of the trauma that you experienced, it would be very easy for us as co-hosts and certainly our viewers to receive it in that space of doom and gloom, because it is a tragic story to hear what a child and his mother endured in that way. But I have great appreciation for your reminder to us that it is ultimately a story of victory and strength and overcoming.
Mm-hmm. So, and I'm personally touched by it. And I shared this on the show before, about my childhood. And so this book is very timely for me to read. And my last question to you, Dr. Hayes, before we let you go, you've shared a great deal of your own personal journey on the show tonight. Who is the audience that this book, that you feel this book is written for?
Well, this book is certainly written for any person who have experienced, witnessed, or observed being developed. It's for members of the LGBT community. It's for social workers. It's for psychologists, because I do have those individuals in my book too, particularly when the social worker comes. It's also for pastors and ministers, to get them to reevaluate that, you know what, according to my reading of the Bible, there hasn't been one person who's been so-called delivered from homosexuality, not one. Jesus said nothing about homosexuality. I want this book to really challenge their thinking, so that we can move away from this perpetual discrimination that's taking place, and realize that in many of our churches, if it weren't for members of the LGBT community participating within them, we would not have a church.
Whew.
And that's solely the opinion of Raphael Heaggans.
And echoed by Alvin B. King. I'm going to say
and
that.
Well, like Lewis, they say.
Dr. Heaggans, this has concluded our wonderful conversation with you. So I'm going to say once again, congratulations and thank you for joining us tonight to have this conversation, because we've been wanting to do it. And I urge everybody to get his book. I can't wait until mine arrives. Bobby has it sitting on his lap, but
Actually,
I cannot wait. And so again, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I really do. I really do appreciate you. Thank you.
And I certainly do thank you all. And I'm so glad that I got my copy also. So thank you so much for having me on.
I'm going to have to work on mine.
This show. It's so awesome.
Thank you. Well, we're going to, since you're here, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do the sign off with our special guest here. Next week, Bobby and I will return with you. We're going to do our Let's Get Newsy. You all love our Let's Get Newsies, and we're going to just pile it on because there's enough out there. And for our amazing words of the week, ladies and gentlemen, which Bobby has shared, extraordinary people survive under the most terrible circumstances, and they become more extraordinary because of it. And this were words by Robertson Davies, ladies and gentlemen. So again, thank you all for joining us tonight. I saw Philadelphia is represented. Marlon, I see you, boy. Don't think I'm gonna let you go. I see Marlon Richardson in here. Okay. Thank you for joining us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. And we look forward to seeing you on the new episode of He Said.
He said.
There you go. You all have a great weekend and stay cool. All right. Take care. Thank you again, Dr. Heaggans.
Thank you all so much.
Our joy.